Hello, fourth grade. Today's lesson 7.9 is on fractions and properties of addition. And it says, how can you add fractions with like denominators using the properties of addition? So we're going to talk today about the properties of commutative and associative. And just a reminder, commutative properties talk about changing the order of something, and associative properties talk about changing the grouping. So it says connect. The associative and commutative properties of addition can help you group and order addends to find sums mentally. This will help you add them in your head. You can use mental math to combine fractions that have a sum of 1. The commutative property of addition states that when the order of two addends is changed, the sum is the same. For example, 4 plus 5 equals 5 plus 4. So the key thing to remember is commutative just simply changes the order. The associative property of addition states that when the grouping of addends is changed, the sum is the same. For example, 5 plus 8 plus 4 equals 5 plus 8 plus 4, and they switch the parentheses from 5 plus 8 to 8 plus 4. Now, either way, the answer is still the same. Now, under unlock the problem, it says the map shows 4 lighthouses in the Florida Keys, and their distances apart in miles. The Dry Turagaz Lighthouse is the furthest west, and the Alligator Reef Lighthouse is the furthest east. And looking at your picture, this is the Dry Turagaz Lighthouse, and this one is the Alligator Reef one. Now, what is the distance from the Dry Turagaz Lighthouse to the Alligator Reef Lighthouse, traveling between the 4 lighthouses? It says use the properties to order and group. Add 70 and 5/10 plus 43 and 6/10 and 34 and 5/10. Now, in order to do this, it says use commutative property to order the addends so that the fractions with a sum of 1 are together. So they would like us to change the order to get 5/10 and 5/10 together. So I kept 70 and 5/10 right where it is, and I rearranged 34 and 5/10 next and put 43 and 6/10 outside of my parentheses. Now, when you add 70 and 5/10 and 34 and 5/10, 5/10 and 5/10 become 1. If you give that 1 to the 34, it becomes 35, and 70 plus 35 is 105. Simply slide down 43 and 6/10 and add the two together, and you get 148 and 6/10. Now, in our next problem, they would like us to use the properties and mental math to solve. It says, show each step and name the property used. Now, my original problem says 1 and 1/3 plus 2 plus 3 and 2/3. Now, by changing the order to 1 plus 3, 1 and 1/3 plus 3 and 2/3 plus 2, I use the commutative property. Now, by grouping and placing parentheses around 1 and 1/3 plus 3 and 2/3, I've used the associative property. Now, when you add 1/3 and 2/3, it becomes 1. And that, by giving the 1/3 to the 3 and 2/3, makes that 4. So 1 plus 3, 1 plus 4 is 5, plus 2 becomes 7. Now, if you look at the next one, it says complete and then name the property used. Now, on this one, 3 and 4/10 plus 5 and 2/10 plus 6/10. Now, if you look closely, they've moved 5 and 2/10 and added it to 3 and 4/10 and kept 6/10 outside. So in this one, they simply flipped the order of these two. We call that commutative property. On line 2, they've placed parentheses around 3 and 4/10 plus 6/10. So they've made a group out of 3 and 4/10 added to 6/10. Now, by combining those two, you get 1, and 1 plus 3 becomes 4. When added to 5 and 2/10, it makes 9 and 2/10. On the bottom part of your share and show, it says, use the properties and mental math to find the sum. On these ones, you do not have to use or explain which property, whether it be commutative or associative. On our first one, they have 2 and 7/8 plus 3 and 2/8 plus 1 and 1/8. Well, if you look closely, 7/8 plus 1/8 will become 8/8, which equals 1. So we're going to change the order and keep the grouping at the beginning. So 2 plus 7/8 plus 1 and 1/8 plus 3 and 2/8 becomes 7/8, because 7/8 and 8/8 equals 1, and added to the 2 would become 3, and added that to that 1 would become 4. And 4 plus 3 and 2/8 is 7/8. Number 3 says 1 and 2/5 plus 1 plus 3/5. Now, if you take 3/5 plus 2/5, you automatically get 5/5, which creates a 1. So we're changing the order and we're also changing the grouping. So we used both properties, and 1 and 2/5 plus 3/5 becomes 2. And we're going to add that to the 1, and that becomes 3. Now, the last one over here, 5 and 3/6 plus 5 and 5/6 plus 4 and 3/6, we need to change the order and the grouping. We're going to change the parentheses and bring 4 and 4/6 and add that to 5 and 3/6. 3/6 and 3/6 become 1, and that will make that 5. So 5 plus 5 and 5/6 becomes, or 5 plus 5 becomes 10, plus 5 and 5/6 becomes 15 and 5/6. Now lastly, I want to do number 5. 1 and 1/4 plus 1 and 1/4 plus 2 and 3/4. Here, I'm going to change 1 and 1/4 and put it outside the parentheses and bring inside the parentheses the 2 and 3/4. When I add 1/4 to 3/4, I get 4/4, which will make that 3, and I add the 1 and I get 4. So 4 plus 1 and 1/4 becomes 5/4. Now I want to skip to the word problems on the bottom one here. I will let you do 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. But I want to talk about which property of addition would be best to solve expression A. When you look over here at expression A, it has 1/8 plus 7/8 plus 4/8. Well, if we move the parentheses and put the parentheses around 1/8 and 7/8, we would get 8/8, which would make that 1 plus 4/8 to get 1 and 4/8. Now, by moving the parentheses, we use the associative property. On number 15, it says which two expressions have the same value? A and C have the same value. They have the same answer. Number 16 says Sherry represented the perimeter of a triangle she measured by using the expression 1.5 plus 2 plus 2.5. How could Sherry rewrite the expression using the associative and the commutative properties? Well, by taking 2.5 out of the parentheses and moving it right after 1 and 1.5, and then moving the parentheses around the first half, you could have the two fractions together, which would then in turn create a 4 and add to it the 2 and you get 6. Your answer is D. Okay, good luck, and text me or call me with your questions or email me with your questions on your PB page 7.9. Thank you.